Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in the Discover Your Potential segment, brought to you by Keep the Past. Today, we're joined by our regular contributor and co-host, Anna Devere, and she is joined by journalist and advocate, Mitzi Perdue. Mitzi is a tremendous force with a long list of accomplishments, some of which include being a former rice grower, the past president of the 35,000 member American Agri-Women, and a former syndicated columnist for both Scripps Howard and her column, The Environment and You, which was the most widely syndicated environmental column in the country in the 1990s. As a war correspondent in Ukraine, she's visited 3 times since the full-scale invasion and has had more than over 100 articles published in outlets such as the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and Newsweek, with many of the interviews for her articles being conducted in actual bomb shelters in cities under active attack. They're going to join me today to chat all about Mitzi's efforts in improving the mental health crisis, spreading awareness, and the importance of giving back. Welcoming now to the show are my friends Anna Devere and Mitzi Perdue. Welcome, superstars.
Yay. Thank you, Zen.
Mitzi, thank you so much for joining us.
What a joy to be with you. I love your show and I love the premise of the show.
All right, let's dive right in. So let's start off with what you're currently working on and why. I understand that the program you created, MentalHelp.Global, was started in an effort to address the problem outlined by the World Health Organization, namely that more than 1 billion people are living with a debilitating mental illness. In fact, the prevalence of all mental disorders worldwide increased by 50% between the 1990s and 2013. So it's clear a focus on improving mental health is exceedingly important, as it's an issue that is certainly not going away. Please tell us more about your program and what it is doing to help.
Okay, I got into it because while in Ukraine, I kept interviewing people, particularly war crimes victims, who were suffering from like panic attacks or depression or disassociation. And I'd ask others, are they going to get help? And the answer was no, not a chance. There's as many as 15 million people in Ukraine right now who have mental health issues. How do you address that? Uh, since there aren't enough mental health professionals in the world to take care of them. And so my background actually is computer science. And I wrote my master's thesis on computers. And I began wondering, might it be possible to use an equivalent of ChatGPT to provide emergency first aid? And that's what I'm up to.
Wow. This this sounds like an incredible program, because with such a large population, to your point, struggling with their mental health, according to the World Health Organization, even before COVID-19 pandemic, which of course brought about its own slew of issues, just a fraction of those in need of mental health care had access to quality, affordable, and actually effective treatment. So you're onto something now. I know Anna has some questions, so I'll let her take it away.
Yeah, and I think, Mitzi, you've already kind of raised this, but you've traveled to Ukraine 3 times in the past few years. A great risk to yourself, I have to add. But why did you decide to do a pilot of your program there in particular?
I did it because I have contacts in Ukraine right now, who are the ones who. I have particular contacts with the police because it's the police who investigate war crimes, and they're the ones who introduced me to people who want to talk about what the Russians did to them. But I would say in pretty much every case of anybody I've interviewed, they have issues like insomnia, panic attacks, depression, just endless. And so it seemed to me if I'm going to work on this, maybe work where I already have a network of people who want to help, including academics at the University of Ukraine. And right now we've very likely raised money to hire somebody full time at the University of Ukraine or Ukraine University to help operationalize this. So that's why we're starting there, but the goal is for it to be global.
Excellent.
Phenomenal. Now, I know you, after your second trip there, you decided to auction off your historic emerald engagement ring to benefit Ukraine. which part of the 1.2 million proceeds going to a women's shelter and another part going to landmine clearance efforts. Mitzi, it's abundantly clear that you've dedicated your life and efforts to giving back with major altruistic acts. What drives your passion for humanitarian service?
Oh, that's so easy to answer. I got influenced by Mother Teresa.
Mm.
And a quick story, but Napoleon Bonaparte and Mother Teresa both had biographies, and I read biographies of both the same week. Napoleon had all the money, glory, power, status, sex that the world has to offer. Mother Teresa, with her vow of poverty and chastity, had none of that. And yet, at the end of their lives, Napoleon said, I can't count 5 happy days in my life, even with all those goodies that the world offers. Mother Teresa, on the other hand, who her only property was 3 saris and the shoes on her feet, the sandals on her feet, she describes her life as a feast of unending joy. So, which is better, to have a feast of unending joy or to not have 5 happy days in your whole life? So it seems to me that philanthropy is selfishly kind of a road to happiness. And you
Mm.
mentioned my ring. I feel so happy that I did that. It gave me more joy to give it away than it did to own it.
You are gorgeous.
I would say the same thing. But Mitzi, as a war correspondent, you've dealt firsthand with some pretty extreme conditions and circumstances. I just wonder how you maintain your own mental health, and how you could advise other people who may feel really overwhelmed by what's happening in the world today.
All right, I have a premise that I follow and I recommend to everybody. Your responsibility is, and I'm being metaphorical when I say this, but your responsibility is to live to fight another day. And
Mm.
what does that translate into real life? It means you can't just immerse yourself 24/7 in the pain and horrors that are going on in the world, or you'll go nuts. So I make it an absolute requirement to have at least an hour a day of something that's uplifting. And it's so, what I do is so small and trivial, but I'll share it with you. On
Sure.
YouTube, there are all these wonderful videos of like people rescuing animals, or there's beautiful parts of life. And so anybody who's in danger of burnout, it's medically a necessity to give yourself respite. You have to live to
Beautiful.
fight another day, and you just can't give in to a full diet of the unbearable.
That's great advice. Now, you're leading quite the charge and using social media as a vehicle for advocacy and change. And with over 5 billion social media users around the world, this is definitely an important tool to utilize to get your voice and cause out there. Now, with the online world only continuing to grow and the rise of various pieces of cutting edge technology, how has the use of artificial intelligence and similar tools helped you move the needle in your cause?
Okay, it's going to be fantastic because allow me to give a couple of statistics. In 1939, the computer power was such that you could make one calculation every 40 hours. Today, with NVIDIA, you can give 500 billion calculations every second. Every second. Uh, that means that we're able to, with Chat GPT and with artificial intelligence, we're able to give people almost in real time, in any language, advice on mental health. And we can't make the mental health problems go away, but we already know that we can be like emergency first aid. We can help people deal with what they're up against.
Mm. That's fantastic. I sense that we're going to have a chat about that in a longer form, Mitzi, because I always like to highlight the upside of AI. I want to talk a little bit about the art of influence. One of the articles I read that you talked about the difference between how ideas are introduced into the world. And since you're such an idea person, can you just talk briefly about the art of spreading ideas in a way that they're adopted instead of opposed?
Okay, we have in any organization that I've ever been part of, starting with American Agri Women, which is right now it's 40,000 women.
Wow.
We have an approach which is an idea imposed is an idea opposed. So in anything where I'm trying to persuade somebody of something, uh, I don't want to say, hey, you have to do it. I would much rather, almost with salesmanship, paint a picture of why it's a good idea. And, if you like it, please join me. It's
Mm.
that approach, I think, has taken me a long way.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
That's
humble.
it is very humble.
Now, looking to the future, how do you foresee the MentalHelp.Global program being implemented in other countries, including our own?
All right, I'm just so excited about this. But at the United Nations, there's a group of 20 ambassadors who like this idea, and they tell me that they're going to have a UN resolution about it in October. Woohoo! And
Wow.
it's so good for the United Nations because, and I even know the president of the General Assembly, and the reason that a it's got the United Nations written all over it, as far as I'm concerned, is because with the latest technologies of language translation, the advice that we give, or not that I give, but that the Chat GPT equivalent will give, it can be in any language, and it's so scalable. It doesn't cost a very great deal, and with the United Nations, I mean, the United Nations can always use some really good publicity, and this is something that nobody's against. I mean, nobody's against mental health. And it's good for both the global south, for European, just for everywhere. It's good, and it doesn't make any enemies. And I'm actually going way out of my way to have it not be focused on Ukraine. Ukraine's the pilot, but for then on, global.
Wow. I love that. And I want to know, how can anybody who wants to make a difference to programs like yours, where do they start? How do they get connected with you, Mitzi?
I would like more than anything in the world to connect with people, because this is something that we can all do together, and we can make it bigger and better and faster. Contact me. The best way to contact me is MitziPerdue.com, and there's a contact area. And when you go to MitziPerdue.com, you'll also get links to the program that we've been describing, and it's called MentalHelp.Global. And I want to pronounce it really carefully, because you want to think mental health, but no, this is mentalhelp.global. So please,
Wonderful.
yeah, if you write to me, I will write back to you, and I will welcome you as somebody who wants to be part of something that you're going to feel really good about when you join.
Amazing. Thank you.
Your philanthropy is matched to none I've ever seen or heard before.
Oh my
Your spirit and your energy is so infectious that I am so eager to check out MitziPerdue.com and go to the contact page on my own.
Mm.
God!
You know what?
Thank you.
I promise you'll see articles that are astounding, that cover so many different topics. I did a deep dive in preparation for this interview, and I'm going to continue to learn more about you. Thank you, Mitzi, for taking us on your very adventurous and profound and meaningful journey. I just thank you for doing that.
Well, my joy to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. That was the Discover Your Potential segment, brought to you by Keep the Past. And that was the incredible Mitzi Perdue, journalist, advocate, and creator of MentalHelp.Global. Definitely be sure to check her out online at MitziPerdue.com to learn more about her efforts. And of course, you can see more of Anna at DiscoverYourPotentialShow.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.